Hello everybody, that's Monstertaming Bisloba coming at you with another Kindred Fates ability tier list. I did one of these a long time ago, and now that we've had quite a few new abilities added and quite a few updates, I decided let's go ahead and do a few more. Alright, this is in conjunction with my other tier list as well. So we do have some of these abilities like these are like whited out because they're white and their icons are white and the background's white, so we'll get to those when we come to them. First things first, we have Air Jab. I think we're going to put Air Jab right in D tier because that it's on Avion, and Avion is not going to be doing the slow melee attack that Air Jab is. And if any other air types are anything like Avion, they're not going to be doing Air Jab either. Air Jab's too slow, and these kinfolk need to get in quickly, do a lot of damage, and get out quickly. You do not want to just stick around to do a low priority attack like Air Jab. Next up is Counter. I'm putting Counter in C tier. Probably going to be high C tier though, because Counter is very good, very fun, but it is only against melee, and it does become predictable if you use it quite often. So that is one bad thing about it. And also, nobody really uses melee, so Counter is kind of going to suffer from that. Crescent Strike, I believe. Oh, or Slash or Strike, I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember the names of some of these abilities, so apologies for that. This is probably going to be the best melee move in the game currently. It's going to be probably still lower B tier because it's still a little bit janky. The damage is great. The hitbox is janky, like it doesn't really hit small kinfolk easily, and overall, you're going to be happy that you have it if you need a melee move, like against someone who's using Reflect, but it's not the best in the world. Alright, Crush is probably going to be the lowest ability in the game. It is way too hard to hit. Like, you can see it coming a mile away. It does very, very little damage unless you've buffed, and the buffs are bad, so it's bad, and it's just overall going to just stay down there in the bad tier. Dark Pulse. No, I'll put it probably above Air Jab and Crush, but still way too hard to hit. It does really good damage, but way too hard to hit, way too easy to punish. Just not very good overall. Rage is, once again, suffers from the way too hard to hit syndrome. The game is very fast paced. All these melee moves are very slow, and I think that is the problem with most melees, is that they're so slow and so hard to hit with how fast paced the game is. Rage does kind of get helped by the fact that it can buff you. If you stand in quicksand or stand in Thunderflies or something like that, you can buff your attack, which can make the rest of your game better. And it does do big chunk of damage if it does hit, but it's just so hard to hit that I have to put it in C tier. Riptide, also going to go into D tier, probably going to still be the top. It hurts me though. I really like Riptide. And the reason I put it down here is because it's only really useful for popping shields, and you cannot hook people and pull them towards you anymore. And so you're rarely going to get this used to pop shields, and it's too easy to get out of and too easy to punish, etc., etc. So that's why it goes into here. This might be Crescent Slashes or Strikes. Or this might just be Slash. That might be Crescent Strikes. This might be Slash. I'm going to put it, come on, put it up in higher C tier. It's an okay move. It's not going to break the game, but you're not going to hate yourself for using it. And it's just alright. It's a melee move, so you're at a disadvantage. You have to get close to your opponent to use it. After you're close, it is kind of a short range still, so you have to get really close. The damage isn't phenomenal, the stun isn't phenomenal, the hitbox is alright, but yeah, it's just going to be a very basic C tier ability. Next up we have Thunderflies. A tier for sure. Thunderflies is amazing utility, horrible damage, decent health, and your opponent is almost guaranteed to either run or kill it, and any move that can force your opponent to do a play is a great move in my opinion. It's also wonderful for setting up combos with basically any other move in the game. Angelic Ray is going to be right up there above Thunderflies in my opinion. It is wonderful for healing. They finally nerfed it, so it's not an S tier anymore. But it is still a wonderful sustainability, and it's pretty much a must-have on Lumala. What the heck is this? Bite. I'll probably put Bite above Slash because that it's a little bit easier to hit with, and the damage is a little bit more nice because you only have to hit once with it rather than having to hit twice or more with Slash. And because of that, it makes Bite a little bit easier to use, and ease of use is what you're looking for when it comes to melee moves. Then we have Armor Up. Going to be putting it down here. It gives you one physical and one special. I feel like if you're going to use a buff, you want to use a 2-stage buff that buffs 2 different abilities rather than just one of each, because that's really splitting your focus too far. Mounts, I'm going to put higher B tier. It provides wonderful maneuverability. The damage is almost non-existent. You can use it to finish off a really, really low health kinfolk. What you're mainly using it for is to get around the map and make great use out of it. Doing that with Slifer, and you can move other kinfolk, not just Slifer, with it. Because if you move Slifer with Mounts, and then switch over to someone else, and continue the combo train. Caustic Cloud, I'm going to probably put right below Thunderflies. I might change that later. But it does amazing damage, and Poison does amazing damage, and it obscures your enemy vision, and it provides map control. There's just nothing to hate about it. Basic attacks are going to be going down here, right next to... it's going to be above these melee abilities. But yeah, basically all the basic attacks are going to be the same. Porkidoki's so bad with his. I'm going to maneuver these in such a way which I think how useful they are to the kinfolks using them. So I'm just going to put them all there now. And they're all D tier. They're all really bad. If there was any other option to be used, you will almost always use that option instead with the kinfolks, unless you really, really need range. That's their only thing they have going for them, is that they are ranged. Yeah, and it's the same tier list as before. I should have probably explained this at the beginning, but S means broken, A means wonderful, could maybe use a small nerf, but is pretty close to perfect. B means could probably use a small buff, but is perfectly fine with it is. C means it's niche, and could probably use a rework or a buff. D means it needs a huge buff or a full rework to be viable. And you would only really use them if you had no other choice. So for Dig, probably going to be one of the only, if not the only, S tier ability. And the reason I say that is because the invincibility frames when you're coming out, I really think those should be taken away. Leave it when you go in and take it when you go out, and then it would go straight to A tier where it belongs, and it could just live a happy life in A tier with everyone else. It just provides too much survivability as it stands. Swipes, Earth Swipe specifically, I think it's going to be in the middle of C tier. Does very little damage, but can finish your opponent off. One good thing you can do with it is trap someone in quicksand. Like, they can't get out if they're trying to run out, and then you go up there and start swiping them with their swipes. You can kind of stick them in there and keep them trapped in quicksand, which is very nice and provides some utility to it. Same thing with Rockside, stuff like that. You can use it to trap people, and you can use it for minimal damage if you need to. Explosion. I think I'll put Explosion here. Explosion does amazing damage, has great AoE. It's hard to dodge unless they see you using your animation. They have to pay close attention to you. And yeah, it's overall solid ability. Can't find any fault in it. Fireball. It does do slash damage. It does do extra damage against shields, but that extra damage against shields is essentially useless. It's a little bit hard to aim. It's because it's so slow moving, so your opponent can kind of dodge it pretty easily, but it's alright. If I had to change something about it, I would make it move faster. Fire Spin, going to be A tier. Well, I guess that's going to be a melee move that's A tier. I thought there wasn't going to be one higher than B, but Technically forgot Fire Spin's technically a melee move. Yeah, melee, this is what a lot of melee moves are lacking. It does decent damage, but really solid damage, has a alright range, and then provides knockback. It is amazing for the kinfolk using it. It provides a great purpose. And if Ember gets new abilities in the future, Fireball is going to go before Fire Spin, and that says a lot since Fire Spin is a melee move. Fling. I put Fling high B tier. Its reliance on items sucks. It's very hard to aim for the amount of damage you get out of it, honestly. Like Explosion is way easier to hit with better damage. And the fact that you need items with Fling, but you can do a quick 3 Fling combo with Cypher, which is very nice and very satisfying, so that's why it's going to be high B. For the future, though, if you have other kinfolk, even if they have Pilfer and Fling, I don't think you're really going to be using Fling on them. It would be a very bad move on anyone except Cypher, in my opinion. Fortify is going to be above the other buffs that only do 1 and 1, just because, like I said, it's better to double down with your buffs. Homing Shot, I'm probably going to put in the upper B tier. It is very easy to dodge or block or reflect, especially since Reflect. If Reflect wasn't here, I might even put it A tier, but it has a bunch of counters, but it also does some very decent damage, is great for chip damage, great for finishing off an opponent, and also really good against flying opponents like Avion. So I have to say it lives in B tier, but it is a little bit easy to dodge for the risk that you have to put yourself in to use it because it's so slow to use. This is Growth, I think. Growth increases both of your attacks by 1. I'll put it below Armor Up. No, I'll put it above Armor Up. I do think buffing your attacks is more important than buffing your defense. Iron Fist, going to be really low B tier. It is great damage. Well, not great, but good damage. Good crowd control, but way too janky. Like, it comes down way too slow. Gets caught on way too many objects. It's just in that regard. Mecha Strike, I think, suffers much from the same issues. You can basically take everything I said about Iron Fist, but apply to Mecha Strike. Just too slow, too hard to hit with consistently. Might even put it like upper C tier, because that although the damage is wonderful, you're basically never going to really hit with it unless your opponent is already stunned. So I got to leave it down in the C tier. Next up is Meditate, which increases special defense. Special defense is more important than physical defense, in my opinion, so we'll put it above that. Pilfer, A tier. It can steal your opponent's item, which that alone be enough to probably make it B tier. But giving the item to you, your opponent has a peach, now you have peach. Your opponent has rations, now you have rations. You deny your opponent an item while giving yourself one. Absolutely amazing ability. You might even increase it above Fire Spin. It can really turn the tide of a game. It's just, I love it. Love to see it. Quicksand, probably put that right below Explosion. Is the best crowd control in the game. Does pretty decent damage, but it is relatively easy to escape from him, because I'll put it right below Pilfer, actually. It's pretty easy to escape from with movement abilities, and some kinfolk like Kadoki move so dang fast, they don't really need movement abilities to escape from it. So the only kinfolk you're really ever going to catch in this is going to be a Salamander or an Ember, because everyone else often runs movement abilities, but it does force your opponent to do something much like Thunderflies, and that's why I love it. Rest, put it high B tier, probably going to be the top of B tier, but it's just so easy to rush down now, especially with Avion. But the ability to heal yourself is amazing. Putting you to sleep isn't great, but that's what Coffee Bean is for. If it didn't put you to sleep and using it, it would probably be high A tier. I don't think it would be broken, because you still have to put yourself in a very vulnerable situation. But I'm not necessarily calling for it to be buffed. I think it's a B tier, but at the same time, I think the way it's designed is going to be a forever B tier ability. Righteous Light, I think I'll probably put around here. It has a long charge up, for not a lot of damage. Like, Explosion is just better than this in every way. The only way this is better is with range, and the range isn't really enough to justify it on literally any map besides Riverside. So I'm going to probably put it right in the middle of B tier. It needs a damage buff. That can be said about pretty much all of Lumala's abilities, honestly. I knew light types aren't supposed to be high damage, but Lumala struggles to close the game. Like, if you have just a Lumala as your last kinfolk, and your opponent has Lumala as their last kinfolk, as I've actually not too far back experienced, it is very hard to close that game out. Like, just, there's not a lot of damage there. I'm not saying Lumala needs to rival Imbear's damage. It would be nice if Lumala had some options to close the game with. We have Roar. Put that low C tier. Debuffs have gotten a lot better in the meta, but still, lowering your opponent's attack is not as important as lowering your opponent's defense, because that you're gonna just want to finish them a lot better, a lot quicker. This is gonna make them harder to kill you, but they're gonna be the same difficulty to kill. So it's just a worse version of lowering their defense. Rockside is probably gonna go around here. It is probably better than Righteous Light, but the dice roll aspect of it is what's really problem. I think if you equalize the damage, it would probably just become an A tier, make it hit consistently and do consistent damage, and then you'll just love to see it overall. Down here we have Ruminate, which increases your attack. We'll put that above Growth, because like I said, doubling up on your attack is better, and special attack is better than physical attack for the most cases. We'll get to a special exception soon. Rush. It's a very solid ability. Its in lag hurts you a lot on it, but overall, you'd love to see it. It gets you out of so many situations that you wouldn't be able to get out of otherwise, and I can't really think of any further complaints for it. Scorch. Probably going to put it right below Explosion, actually. It has wonderful area control. Like, you can really lock your opponent into an area or out of an area. It does great damage, and burn is very nice to apply on your opponent as well. The only negative to it I can think is they kind of see it coming, but overall, I think it's a very, very solid ability with very few weaknesses. Is Sharpen? Okay, I'm going to put Sharpen up in C tier, because that it is situationally useful on Avian. It is the first buff that really gets use, and it is useful only on Avian. That's why I'm going to put it in C tier, because C tier is for niche situational abilities, but it can really be beneficial to Avian. Spore Dance is probably going to be right up here. If you could maybe buff its sleep duration by a single second or half a second or something like that. Not what it used to be, but just a little bit more time. It would probably go up to A tier, because right now it is really hard to use. Startle. Very high B tier. Yeah, I'm thinking very high B tier. It is go through walls, do a little bit of damage, lower your opponent. Actually, I'll put it low A tier. It just is wonderful for getting your opponent's defenses lowered and softening them up for other attacks. If you have a kinfolk like Slifer who can move around very quickly and dodge your opponent, debuff them, and stuff like that, you can just play around it and do incredible damage, especially if you do like a double debuff strat with Slifer and Skulkin. You can get your opponents really squishy, really fast, and basically take your pick of what you want your opponent, which kinfolk you want to absolutely destroy. This is just normal swipes. It's going to be a little bit better than Earth swipes, because basically because Slifer uses it instead of Shovelet. Otherwise, it's just a very basic ability. You're just going to do a decent, little tiny bit of damage. It's not great though. Teleport, I'm probably going to put up here above Pilfer and Quicksand. The movability for it is amazing, especially because it can enable Skulkin to be probably the most survivable kinfolk in the game using rations. And it's just love it. There's nothing really to say about it. I think it's in a pretty great spot. Thrash, probably going to be like somewhere around here. It's probably the best of the bad moves, the best of the bad melee moves, but it's still pretty bad. The biggest redeeming feature is that it can hit through walls, which means you can do some weird janky plays on ruins, but otherwise it's pretty bad. Twister, I feel like it's too hard to aim with. That's the main problem with it. It does some really good damage, but it's just really hard to aim with. Maybe if it had a slight tinge of homing to it, like I think it was originally supposed to in the description, that'd probably make it a little bit better. But right now it gets caught on too many objects and it's too easy to dodge to be super useful. But it does do really good damage when you do hit with it, so that's why it's going to be into the B tier. Wicked Thorns is almost only useful for just blocking your opponent's attacks and damage, so it's going to go into low C tier. Its damage is really bad. Its health is alright. It basically is like a makeshift version of like Rockwall. For Wither, we'll put Wither low B tier. It suffers similar to Iron Fist in the way that Iron Fist doesn't really do anything because that it is so easy to dodge, but it has great potential. Wither is in the same situation. It's very easy to dodge, very hard to aim. You're mostly suffering from, you know, the fact that you're gonna have to put in a lot more effort than it's really worth. But I'll move it down to top of C tier because of that. Now I am missing a Rockwall on this list. Not sure what happened to it, but I was pretty sure it was on here. Anyways, Rockwall would be put on here at right down here somewhere in D tier. I'm not exactly sure where, but it is very bad, and I don't really like it. Its only real use is to knock you into the air, and it's too easy to get around or destroy otherwise. But yeah, please let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and if I missed anything else, feel free to comment and let me know what I missed. I'll give my opinions on those abilities in the comments. There are a lot of abilities here, so please forgive me if I miss something, whereas we're getting quite a few abilities as the game goes on. Yeah, this is Monstertaming signing off. Hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye, God bless, and see you all next time. Bye-bye.